it becomes really, really easy to
Yeah.
quit if you are only recording one episode a week, and then, you release every Tuesday, and then you wake up Monday afternoon sometime and you're like,
And you're like, you
oh,
need to
I have an episode I got to put out tomorrow. And then you scramble and you put out an episode that's not good quality, that doesn't match your, standards of excellence.
Welcome to the Expert in You podcast, the show for professional entrepreneurs, experts, authors, speakers, coaches, and consultants who are ready to elevate their business, expand their influence, and boost their bank accounts. Join us as we dive deep with industry-leading experts who share their top strategies, invaluable insights, practical tips, and personal experiences to help you achieve extraordinary growth and success. Whether you're looking to sharpen your skills, stay ahead of the curve, or find that competitive edge, this podcast is your ultimate resource for unlocking your full potential. So tune in, get inspired, grab your coffee, and let's unlock the expert in you.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Expert in You podcast. I'm your host, Dan Carden, and I'm so excited for this episode today. We're actually going to talk about making money with a podcast. And I have a true podcast expert on here, Travis Chappell. He is one of the top 25 for business podcasts called Travis Makes Money. Travis, welcome to the show.
And thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
I'm so excited to have you on. We're going to really dive into some juicy things here, how to make a lot of money with your podcast. And you're going to share how you were able to get your podcast to the top 25. That is such an accomplishment. How long have you been at that, trying to do that, Travis?
I have been podcasting since 2017. So I launched in August of 17. So coming up on 8 years now, which is crazy. Yeah.
So it's taken you 8 years to get it to the top 25?
Actually, no, it probably took me a year and a half or so to get it to the top 25. And we basically have just jumped in and out of that ever since then. So I don't know if it is I don't know at any given point if it is currently in the top 25, but it's always kind of fluctuating in and out ever since, year two of having the show. But yeah, that was never like a big goal for me to be in the top charts. I think that's frankly, I think it's mostly overrated. There's not much like benefit that comes from being there, except for just being able to say it. It's not like it used to be. Like there used to be real value in being in the top charts. Like when back in, 2012, 13, 14, there just weren't that many podcasts in existence. And so when people were, when people were consuming podcasts for the first time, they would open up this strange new purple app that was preloaded onto their iPhone that they just bought and be like, oh, I wonder what this is all about. And they'd start looking for podcasts. And that's when the top charts really meant something, because you would get extra download traffic from that. But I remember working my butt off to get onto the top 200 business podcasts when I launched my show in 2017, because my coaches at the time were like, yeah, if you get onto the top charts, you'll get this windfall of traffic and you'll boost up to even higher on the charts. And that's going to be like the unlock to have this insane amount of growth and get some sponsors, your first couple of months. So I did that, got on, I think I was number 178 or something on all of business, like the actual business category, not a subcategory of business. And it did zero things for my podcast. It brought in no traffic. It brought in no listeners or subscribers or anything like that. And so since then I was like, this doesn't really seem to be super important, except for the fact that I can take screenshots of it and send it to people and be like, I'm a top podcaster, So since then I haven't really focused on it that much, honestly.
That sounds good. Yeah. I love this. I think this is going to be a great conversation because so many people start their podcast and they, number one, don't have a great strategy behind it, or their strategy is exactly what you're talking about. I want to get it up to be a top show and I'll get a lot of sponsorship deals. But as you said, it's a busy space, right? There are a lot of podcasts now where people can advertise, where they can sponsor. And so it is a tougher world to do that in podcasting. However, that being said, Travis has just done some cool things, and we're going to talk about that. But Travis, how did you kind of get into the podcast world? What was sort of that journey for you?
I was a listener. I was just a fan of the platform, honestly. It was like I had some personal life things happen where, so just like a blimp view of what had happened. I was raised in kind of a cult-ish background. So I graduated kindergarten, 8th grade, high school, and college on the same 40-acre campus, which is also where I went to church. It was very much like growing up in a bubble. I didn't know anybody really outside of that world. My friends and my friends were my school friends. They were also my church friends. They were also my youth group friends. They were also my, sports friends. My teachers were my youth leaders, everybody was all the same. And so I thought I was going to be in full-time ministry. That's what I got my degree in at that college. It was Bible and church ministries, double major, unaccredited. But by the time I graduated, I realized I didn't really want to do that. And so I was kind of at a loss. And the strange part about this is that before I graduated with my useless degree, I also got married. So I was 21, I was married, and I bought a house. So I had a mortgage to pay and a wife at home, and I didn't have any way of making money. So I did the only thing I knew how to do at the time, which was door-to-door sales. So I'd done that in college and had done pretty well at it. So I just, well, what if I do this full time? I started knocking doors, and pretty quickly, like within about a year or a year and a half or so of doing that full time, I realized it's not really what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. Although it provided me a lot of flexibility, and I made 6 figures my first year doing it, which was cool for being 22. I thought I was balling, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, I got to the point where I was like, I don't really want to do this forever either. So now I'm at this weird part where like I have this degree in something that I don't want to do, and I have this experience in something that I don't want to do. So what do I do now? And this was the first time in my life and that I really got into personal development, just like education outside of the education system. And so I was just searching for anything and everything I could find. I was reading books for the first time. I was listening to audiobooks for the first time, and I came across these things called podcasts. And for me, it was my favorite way to consume information. So I'm not I'm more of a reader now. But back then I was not a reader at all. It was like a running joke in my family that I was not a reader. People would try to buy me books all the time, and they just would never even get cracked open, So podcasting was more my speed. I liked that I could just turn it on and listen and just drive, or I could be doing other things while I was just consuming good information. And sooner or later, I was just like, this seems like a cool thing to do. Do these people make money doing this? And I started doing some research and figured out that people made good money doing it. So I was like, let me try this thing. So I hired a coach, jumped into a small mastermind group, and started learning as much as I could about podcasting, launched the podcast, and pretty immediately realized that it was going to be much more difficult to gain listenership and audience than I originally thought it was going to be. Right. So yeah, that was what ultimately got me into it, was just like curiosity, and I love the platform.
It's so interesting. So it's so funny. I've had my podcast for about 4 years and just started a second show. And I'm not really someone that listens. I'm on a lot of podcasts, but I don't really listen to podcasts so much because I'm more of a visual person. So I love to consume videos where I can actually see the person. And so it's interesting how we all like to consume information or get information different ways. So you launched it. You got it up to the top 175 or whatever. It did nothing for your business. How did you get it to 175 though, when you actually launched it? What was that game plan?
Lots of grassroots stuff. I went on a few podcasts, which was really helpful. But also it was just like sending messages and texting like anybody that I knew that would be willing to at least like subscribe to the show, leave a rating, review, and give me some feedback.
Did it always have the same name, Travis? So have you had the same name the whole time, or did you change that?
No, the show was called Build Your Network at first. Okay. So very niche specific, which is something that I recommend, obviously, to anybody who is getting started in podcasting. If you don't already have an existing brand, then then building a niche audience is much, much easier and faster than building a broad audience. So I started talking about like networking for professionals and entrepreneurs, mainly because I didn't know how to do it. So it was kind of like a discovery process for me of learning.
So you were interviewing people so you could learn. Is that correct? Basically, that was your game plan? Okay.
I was not claiming to be the expert. I was at the time I was 24. I was door-to-door sales guy and didn't have much to talk about or much expertise to share with people, minus door-to-door sales. But I was trying to get out of that, so the first ever mastermind I went to, I remember the people telling me like, you should be talking about door to door. Like you should be talking about sales because people want to learn this from you because, you're doing 100% commission door to door. We all want to learn from you how to sell better or whatever. And I was just like, yeah, but I don't want to do that. I'm starting this show so that I can get out of this space. And if I start a show about it, it's only going to draw me in further. So I recognized that at the beginning where it's like, I'm not the expert. I'm not going to be doing a bunch of solo shows and giving content out about stuff I don't really know or understand. So it would just be it was a discovery process. So I did 3 interviews a week at the time, and committed to doing that for a couple of years before I was going to change anything, switch anything. We ended up rebranding around episode 800 of the show. So the majority of the time the shows existed, it was actually called Build Your Network. And so, yeah, it was Build Your Network for a really long time.
I really want to talk about this because I rebranded too after my first year. It was called the Strategic Edge. And I realized as my brand evolved, Expert in You, it didn't align anymore. And I wanted to build up my brand even more robust. And so we changed the name of the show, still doing the same things with it, but we just rebranded. And I think that's an important thing for people to know too, is don't be so stuck on what you're doing that if it's not serving you anymore, with where your business has evolved or how you have evolved, then don't be afraid to change that up. Do you agree with that too, Travis?
Yeah, 100% with podcasting in particular. And I think that you're not like the name of the game is consistency and improvement over time.
Yes.
And if you're not talking about something on the show that is somewhat interesting to you, it's going to be really easy to quit because the results don't come quickly. So if you're disinterested in something, you're only doing it because it solves a problem or you think it should be talked about and you don't really have a ton of interest in talking about that thing, it's going to be really easy to quit. So make it difficult to quit. Make it to where you have other things to gain outside of just the audience. So if it's getting stale and you're getting stagnant and you just don't want to do it, like the point where I realized I needed to rebrand was basically where I started realizing that the appointments on my calendar for doing podcast interviews and stuff, I started dreading those times. Like I started being an energy and time suck for me instead of something that fueled me, which was the opposite of what it was when I started the show.
Right.
So I knew right around that time, I was like, I got to switch something up about this or else I'm going to be in that podcasting graveyard really soon, So I think it's really important to be talking about stuff that you care about talking about.
Yeah. And I also, so one of the things I do teach my clients how to launch a podcast if they don't have one, or even a lot of times they do have one, but it's not really bringing them clients or it's not really building their business or their revenue. And I feel like a podcast kills a lot of birds with one stone. Like you're building your visibility, you're building your authority, but you can also get really high-end clients. You can get to premium clients, which is the way we use it in our business and the way I teach my clients to do it. And so it's important to know what your strategy is and what you're trying to accomplish with your show. So your goal was to really, build it up and get the listeners and all of that. And that is a strategy. It's not the only strategy. So there are ways to monetize it even faster than doing that, but you have to know what that's going to be for you. And a lot of podcasters, people that are selling podcast services, they are getting clients from having their own show, and then they're selling people back in podcast services. So there's a lot of ways to use it and what you're doing in your business. But
absolutely,
yeah, I think the average podcast, what is it? They only makes it to 10 episodes or something like 80% of them only make it to 10 episodes.
90% will never do more than 10.
That's crazy. And that, to me, that is, again, a lot of times because people don't start with a strategy, or they start with something that they think, okay, I want to just put this out there and build value. That gets old. At some point, you need a return on your time investment. Time you'll never get back, right? So you need a return on your investment. Otherwise, it's just noise and it's just a time suck. There's a lot that goes into a podcast. People don't realize it. Whether you're doing it yourself or you have a team doing it, there is still a lot to a podcast.
It's going to cost you either time or money. And a lot of times
both. I do, but mine is both, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, a lot of times it ends up being both, depending on how much, like I never edited an episode of my own show. So it was immediately costing me money to produce it every single month.
Yeah, I have not either. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you just got to figure out some way to be able to offset that cost pretty quickly, or it's going to become, like I said, it's just going to, you're going to make it really easy to quit. So how do you make it not easy to quit?
Absolutely. So where did Travis Makes Money come from when you rebranded your show? Where did that come from?
Yeah, so that was actually super recent. That was actually February of this year.
I was on his show too, by the way. I don't even know if that's been out yet, Travis, but it was fun being on his show.
Yeah. So that came out in February of 2025, actually. So we rebranded. There's a couple things that happened, basically. So I wanted to continue the relationship thing, but I also wanted to broaden the audience so that it was really like a guest perspective. Like I just noticed that I was trying to get not necessarily bigger and better guests, just guests outside of just the online business world. And I just found pushback about the networking concept, because just like, a comedian or an athlete or someone like that, like they don't want to come on and talk about professional networking or whatever. So that's what initially the rebrand was to Travis Makes Friends, which is now, as of the first week of this month, when we're recording this in April of 2025, is now live on all platforms again. So now we have two podcasts. We have Travis Makes Friends and we have Travis Makes Money. So basically where that came from is when I decided to exit my current business, Guestio, which is where we've connected guests and shows together for about the past 4 years. We've been doing that for a little while. We decided at the beginning of this year to get out of that business. And so we were like, okay, well, how do we continue to monetize online? Well, why don't we just focus on growing the podcast? The podcast is just just growing in the background. And then the sponsorship money started coming in a little bit. And I was like, it just kind of like snuck up on me. So at the end of last year, I was looking at it, I was like, oh, we made a few $1,000 this month on sponsorships. That's kind of cool. And I was like, wonder what would happen if we just could focus on this fully, exclusively.
Go after it. Yeah.
So that was when we made the decision to rebrand Travis Makes Money and then split off Travis Makes Friends into its own podcast. So Travis Makes Friends is more kind of like my passion project podcast. It's more just like, I just love the conversations. I have conversations with like comedians and psychologists and authors and athletes and entertainers, like just a different type of conversation. They're longer form. Had some UFC champs on there, just different people like that the business show wouldn't really necessarily lend itself to. And then we do that one once a week. And then Travis Makes Money, it was just like, we need, from a business perspective, we need more downloads so that we can sell more sponsors. There's only really two ways to get more downloads. Number one is grow the audience. Number two is release more episodes. So we went the release more episodes route because it's 100% within our direct control. So instead of releasing 1 or 2 episodes a week, we started releasing 7 days a week. So now Travis Makes Money is daily interviews with entrepreneurs talking about.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's a lot. Yes.
Yeah. So we went like really niche again, instead of talking broad, like Travis Makes Friends. It's like, well, we talk about anything on Travis Makes Friends. Travis Makes Money is all about personal finance, money, saving, investing, learning how to increase your income. So we went niche and we went to 7 days a week. So that's what enabled us to really, we 5x'd our downloads in a month just from releasing 7 days a week instead of 1 or 2 episodes a week. So that was kind of the strategy behind that, was just how do we increase downloads so that we can increase sponsorship revenue, and then split off the show and allow myself to kind of like do this other thing that I really enjoy, while also being able to have something that actually makes some money. So that was kind of the purpose behind the rebrand and the split off.
And so you just signed some big sponsorship deals, you were telling me when we were kind of in the green room, and you said we just signed some big sponsorship deals. So that's super cool. How did those come about, Travis? I know you said you were going to kind of go all in on that, but how did that come about?
Hi, friend. I have an exciting announcement. I hope you're enjoying this episode of Expert in You podcast, but I have to ask you, have you checked out the latest issue of Expert in You magazine yet? It's jam-packed with rich content, powerful strategies, inspiring stories, and so much more to help you elevate your business and personal growth. Don't miss out. Go grab your digital copy now and join our community of experts making a difference every day. Go to expertinyoumagazine.com and check out your digital copy today. Transform your expertise into success with Expert in You magazine. It's not just a publication, it is a movement.
Yeah, it was just some warm introductions from people in my network that I was able to leverage into some like longer term podcast sponsorship deals. They were just made that people made some intros to me for like affiliate relationships. And so I was just like, well, we don't do any affiliate deals unless that company also sponsors the show. So we ended up, making a couple strong sponsorships, a couple six-figure sponsorship deals with people who were wanting us to be affiliates for their companies. And so, yeah, that was a huge win for us because it basically 100% like now it's really profitable. Essentially, it took us from making like, 4,000 or 5,000 a month to, a couple 5 figures a month 5 figures a month in sponsorship revenue alone. So
what did they get for like a 6-figure sponsorship deal? What would they get for that?
Yeah, it's just basically a impressions thing. So it becomes like running a media company rather than running like an online business coaching company or something like that. So like our product is no longer, a coaching program or a course or a consulting package or something like that. Our product essentially is the show itself. So we basically increase impressions and then we sell those impressions to advertisers who need additional impressions for whatever company they're trying to promote. So we, typical CPMs, which is cost per 1,000 impressions. Typical CPMs in the podcasting world are anywhere from $15 to $25. So if you have 1,000 impressions, you can sell that for $15 to $25 per 1,000 impressions. So if you have if you're getting 10,000 downloads an episode, then that's 10 units of 1,000 downloads. So that's $250 per spot. Well, you can have on a 35-minute episode, call it 4 spots without being super interrupting and annoying to the listener. So if you have 4 spots that you can sell for $250 a piece, now you can make $1,000 an episode theoretically. So that's kind of how the math ends up working out is like, so you just got to find the sponsor that's willing to have that's willing to, pay the CPM that you're wanting to charge for the show. And then we just like throw in other things to sweeten the deal a little bit more. Like, hey, we'll also tag you in our social media posts. We'll also include your logo in all of our newsletter sends or, whatever it is. So like, so we can drive down their CPM cost by giving additional impressions across other media channels. Besides just the podcast, just to sweeten the deal and make it look like it's even a better deal for the advertiser, because it is a better deal for the advertiser. So instead of self-sponsoring, which is what I've done for a really long time, which is basically just sending all the traffic to my own products and services, I send all the traffic to other people's products and services and they pay me for that traffic.
Yeah, that's great. No, I love it. This is just another way for people to look at podcasting. But like you said, it took you a long time to get there. It didn't happen overnight. And I think for a lot of people, they never get there. They burn out before that happens. So there are a lot of ways to monetize the podcast, many, many ways to monetize. And you were smart in the fact that you did monetize other ways as you were building the show and doing all of that. But then you get to a place where now it really has built up and you have the opportunity to get those bigger deals. So cool.
Yeah. And to your credit for the first few years, like this would not have been an option when I started the show. I didn't have enough, like I was getting like 200 downloads an episode. You know what I mean? So it's like, what am I going to do? I have 2,500 downloads a month. You know what I mean? So like, what's that going to do for me? Like 2,500 downloads, like that mean that I'm going to make $400 like selling other people's stuff this month, like, or I could make 10 grand selling my own stuff. You know what I mean? Like it just the numbers didn't pencil out. They didn't make any sense. So that's why for a long time I sold my own stuff. It's just that in the background, I would take a percentage of my profit from selling stuff on the podcast and I would dump it into advertising the podcast itself so that I could grow listenership on the show so that I could eventually get sponsorships.
And that was going to be my next question. So how did you really grow it? So you were doing basically paid advertising to keep driving people and driving traffic to the show, just like you would for anything else. If you're going to scale anything, you're going to have to do paid advertising in there. And so I think that's really important for people to know too, just kind of really letting you peek behind the curtain of somebody who's had like really great success doing the strategic side of sponsorships and that type of thing with your show. Perhaps go ahead.
I was going to say, basically becomes kind of like impression arbitrage. It's like if I know that I can acquire impressions for this much and sell them for this much, then I can somewhat theoretically anyway predict how much money I can make. Because I know I can sell it for this much, and I know I can acquire it for this much, and I know that it's going to take me, 1 to 3 months to get to that level. So that's why at first, like it wouldn't have worked even if I like you'd have to have super deep pockets. So that's why you see, these massive like true crime shows and stuff. They have so much success like right at the beginning. It's because they're being produced with multi-six-figure budgets. So they have, $150,000 for just the first season of the show. It's like, because they have voice actors and they have voiceovers and they have narration and they have story, then they have scripts. And so there's writers and there's designers, there's audio designers, there's sound designers, there's actors involved, there's producers involved. So it's like they're spending six figures just to produce 12 episodes of the show. But then they also have a six-figure ad budget. So it's not like they magically see success because the content's that good. It's like the content's really good and they spend a lot of money making sure the content's good. Yes. But also in addition to that, they also spend six figures advertising the show. So that's why when you listen to like a true crime podcast, there's probably two or three ads in that podcast for other true crime podcasts that you could listen to within the same network of shows, like a Wondery or Gimlet, or actually Gimlet was acquired by Spotify. So now like all those shows are Spotify shows. But yeah, you'll see, you'll see advertisements of other podcasts within an existing network on the bigger shows in that network. And those people get paid for those spots on their show. So they spend a lot of money to create the show, but they also spend a ton of money to advertise the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's so important for people to know too. Travis Makes Money Show. It's been a while since I've been on it. So I'm trying to remember, how long typically is your show?
Yeah, we do about 30 minutes on that one. So they go anywhere from 25 to 35 minutes. We've had a couple that have gone like 45 minutes to an hour, but typically those are like the in-person ones, which we rarely do on that show. I made that decision early on just because I was like, it's expensive to rent studio space, So like, and then logistically to get people out to do it in person in studio, it was like, man, this would cost me like $12,000 a month just to record the episodes. Yeah. So we made a decision early on, like we're going to do.
You're not like a Lewis Howes or a Joe Rogan, huh?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. So we don't have that type of draw. So we don't have people like dropping all their plans to fly across the country to be on the show, Right. So yeah, we just were like, you know what, let's just do all of these on virtually for the time being. And then every once in a while we have somebody come into town and those people will actually pay to sponsor that episode of the show so that we can afford to do it in studio. So they'll pay a couple $1,000 to be on the show for the traffic and things like that too, but also to cover the cost of producing that episode when it's in person, because there's a lot of additional costs associated with that. But for the most part, we're like 25 to 35 minutes on that show.
Okay. Very cool. So 7 days a week. Are you loving that? Is it that's a lot. That is a lot that you are doing.
It is a lot. It is a lot of work. Right now it's fine. I knew it was going to be like torture for the first couple of months because
as you build up, you have to do a lot of recordings and build.
Yeah, you want to batch and get ahead of schedule for any show, whether you're releasing one a week or 7 a week. You always want to be 6 weeks plus scheduled out, or else this is again one of those things that makes it easy.
Or it becomes stressful.
It becomes really, really easy to quit if you are only recording one episode a week, and then you release every Tuesday, and then you wake up Monday afternoon sometime and you're like, oh, I have an episode I got to put out tomorrow, and then you scramble and you put out an episode that's not good quality, that doesn't match your standards of excellence. So you should always be 6 to 8 weeks, scheduled out, in my opinion, if you're running a podcast, unless it's something that's like I have a couple of friends that do like news podcasts, and they obviously can't schedule that out because they don't know what the news is going to be in 6 weeks. But for the most part, if you want to be batched out 6 to 8 weeks. It's just that with a daily show, it's a heavy lift. And we didn't decide to do the daily show until like halfway through January, and we knew we were launching February 1st. So from the last week of January until the first week of April, I did close to 150 interviews. So probably like 130 something interviews in like that 10-week period of time. So I had a couple weeks that were like 30 interview weeks. And I had, it was on average probably 15 interviews a week. So that was a lot. That was quite a bit, because it was like basically every day, Monday through Thursday, I opened up my calendar and I would have at least 3 interviews a day for every day of the week for like 10 weeks. But now we're, April 23rd as of this recording. So if I didn't record another episode, we would be good until June 21st or something like that, if my memory serves correctly. So yes, we're a full 2 months ahead of schedule now. So now my batching schedule basically looks like I'm only opening up my calendar for the first week of every month. So now I haven't done a recording since April 4th. And then my May calendar is starting on the 6th. So I just pulled up my calendar. On May 6th, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 interviews scheduled on the 6th. Looks like about 7 on the 7th, about 8 on the 8th, and 5 on the 9th. So I have like basically my entire recording calendar from June 21st to July 21st in the first week of May. So that way I can batch record everything at the very beginning of the month and then not have to do any interviews for another 3.5 weeks. So like it allows me to, have some sort of control over the schedule, even though it's a lot of recording to be done.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. I think it's great too that you shared all that, because a lot of times people think things are easy and they're not. It all takes work. Everything you're doing takes work. It's not, you don't just fire it up and it's successful and all of those things. So I think it's important for people to know that and kind of know what they're getting into. But there's so many ways to make money. Do you go out and speak, Travis, around podcasting and how to do podcasting in the right way? Are you a speaker as well?
Yeah, I did that for a really long time. So that one of the pros of growing up in this kind of weird way that I grew up was that I was speaking on stage since I was like 12. All the time. I was always up in front of people. And so that was one of those things that was pretty easy to work into my professional life. Was like, I'm pretty used to doing this. It's just now I'm going to be sharing my own stuff instead of stuff from the Bible, So it just was a little bit of a pivot. So I've always done the speaking stuff. Not as much recently, just because it was just like cloudy. I was just like, I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to talk about at this point. Cause I'm not really doing a ton of podcast. Like for a while I was doing podcast coaching, consulting, courses, production, guest booking, show booking, but I've slowly gotten out of all of those things. And now that I'm exiting the guest and show booking business, I don't know exactly, like I'm in the middle of trying to figure out like what these next talks are going to be about, because I don't necessarily want it to continue to being about just podcasting. Although I would take those gigs just because I enjoy it. It's fun to me to get up and share stuff from stage, but I've always kind of done that.
So what are your big goals then? Like where do you see yourself going?
I would love to turn this into much more of a media company. So following more like the Stephen Bartlett Diary of a CEO model, where basically they're just concerned with having good listener experience, providing really great content, growing their channels. They're building an internal network of a bunch of other shows, and they make money exclusively through sponsorships and the content. Like I said, it's the difference between the content being a lead in to a product, being lead gen for your business, versus having the content be the actual product. So right now we're kind of focusing more on how do we make the content the actual product. So we started brand new channels for Travis Makes Money this a month or two ago. So we are now like on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube with Travis Makes Money. And then now we're starting, I think our first newsletter actually went out this morning. for Travis Makes Money. So I think we called it the Make More Money newsletter. So that newsletter we're hoping can be kind of almost independent of the show. So people who like to consume newsletter content would subscribe to that, even if they haven't listened to the podcast. So now we're doing like weekly roundup newsletters that look really nice. My newsletter guy, my email guy is just really, really good. He's been working with me for a long time, knows how to write in my voice really, really well. And then he basically just takes synopses of the podcast and then puts out this really nice, beautiful, laid out newsletter that we've just started releasing today. So we're just trying to be like, okay, can we increase newsletter subscribers, increase podcast downloads, increase social media?
And do you charge for the newsletter?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What do you charge for the newsletter?
So that's one we're still trying to work out because we've never done newsletters stuff before. So right now we basically just wrapped it into our podcast sponsorships because we knew that we had the podcasting audience, and we're just like, look, let's sweeten the deal for this sponsor by just giving this to them for free. And then we'll figure it out along the way. So, we're doing the same idea, the same model is like all the money that we're making on the podcast sponsorships. We're just using that money to grow the other channels as well. So it's like, we're just reinvesting that money into, ads to grow the newsletter, to just get people to subscribe to the newsletter, ads to grow the podcast, ads to grow the social channels. So we're just actively trying to dump every dollar back into the business to increase the total number of people that are tuning into the stuff that we're putting out. But as long as the content's good, we're hoping that they're going to subscribe and then stick around because they really actually enjoy the content, not because they saw an ad somewhere.
Right. Very cool. I love it. This has been so great. What would you like to leave people with, Travis, as final thoughts, or and even what would you like to drive them to if you want to drive them to your newsletter? And we'll put those links in the show notes, but go ahead and share.
Yeah. So if you're a podcast listener, which you are, if you're listening to this right now, Travis Makes Money podcast is a great place to start. We've been talking about, we put out daily interviews with entrepreneurs. I've done over 1,100 podcast episodes now. So it's been remarkably easier than I thought it would be to do the volume of interviews that we're doing, just because I've done so many interviews. So now it's much easier to. I've honed the skill of extracting good content from solid guests, and then also getting good guests. That was like what my business was getting good guests for a long time. Right. So we get good guests, we ask good questions, provide good content. So if you enjoy listening to podcasts specifically about money and business, then I think you would really enjoy the Travis Makes Money podcast. So whatever application you're listening to this on, including YouTube, for watching on YouTube, we're there. So go search Travis Makes Money and subscribe, leave us a rating, review, let us know what you think about the show.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. This has been so much fun interviewing you and seeing everything that you're doing. I'm so excited for your success. Congratulations on that. And it's going to be exciting to see what you do in the future and how that all goes for you with the media company. So thanks for sharing, Travis. Thanks so much for being here.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for being here for another episode. Make sure you subscribe to the show, share it. And as always, we love to hear your feedback. We love great reviews. We're trying to build this podcast up as well. So God bless you. Have an amazing day. Go rock your business. Bye-bye.
The content of this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. Although I share strategies, ideas, and success stories based on real experiences, results are never guaranteed. Every business is unique, and outcomes depend on individual effort, market conditions, and many other factors. By listening, you agree that I and my guests are not responsible for your results or actions based on the content shared. Thank you for tuning in today. If you're as excited as I am about scaling up your influence, business, and bank account, then I have just the thing for you. But first, make sure you subscribe to the show. Second, make sure you share it with someone you care about, because sharing is caring. And third, head on over to join me in my next free virtual exclusive workshop, where we'll explore proven strategies to boost your business and maximize your potential. Look, it doesn't matter if you're just starting out or if you're looking to take your business to the next level, my workshops are designed for you. So head on over to expertinyouworkshop.com to reserve your spot and get ready to transform your expertise into extraordinary success. I'm looking forward to seeing you there and helping you achieve incredible growth. Until next time, make sure you're always seeking the expert in you, and God bless. Have an amazing day.